What is going on, ProGuides family? My name is Matt, and today, Riot has just dropped patch 1.09 for us. As you might expect, there was some pretty interesting changes in this patch, and we're going to be breaking it all down for you right here, right now. But before we dive right in, you know what time it is. It is, of course, time for our question of the day. Today, we want you to let us know what you think the most interesting change was in this patch. Be sure to watch through to the end and let us know in the comments down below what you think. Alright, I think that's enough chatter. Let's dive right into these patch notes. Up first, as almost always, are the weapon changes. Today, we saw the Operator get hit with some pretty interesting nerfs. The Operator's price has been increased from 4,500 credits to 5,000 credits, on top of a decreased scope movement speed from 76% speed to 72% speed. This change means that while you are walking scoped in with the Operator, you're going to move slower than before. Riot has also adjusted the dead zone from 30% movement speed to 15% movement speed. That means that when you're trying to stop moving and become accurate with the Operator in hand, you'll have to be moving slower than before to become fully accurate. Riot has also decreased the Operator's leg shot damage to be 120, down from the old 127 damage per shot. To top all of that off, it was also hit with a slight rate of fire nerf from 0.75 to 0.6 rounds per second, and the instant equip time was increased from 0.3 seconds to 0.5 seconds, which means it will now take just a little bit longer to get that first shot off with the Operator after pulling it out. These are definitely some pretty intense nerfs coming to the Operator, but whether or not these changes will affect the Operator's play or win rate remains to be seen. Personally, I think that Riot is trying to force the Operator into a very specific playstyle here. It's pretty obvious that they don't want people like Waddle to do what they've been doing, constantly playing aggressive and removing players from the round before they even have a chance to strike back. These changes are definitely going to force people to play a little bit slower, and in turn, we might see some new strategies to be developed from Operator players. Be sure to be on the lookout for our video on the new Operator, and what it could mean coming out soon. Some more awesome changes coming to the world of Valorant include a new system that will force players to change their Riot ID if Riot detects that it is not in line with their community standards. In short, any player that is detected to have a blatantly offensive or over-the-top Riot ID might be flagged by this system. If you are flagged, the next time that you log into Valorant, you'll be prompted to change your Riot ID and won't be able to play Valorant until you do so. This is definitely going to be a nice change to get rid of some of those names that can go a little bit too far. But I just hope that we don't see Riot overstepping boundaries and forcing people whose names might be edgy, but not necessarily harmful, to change it. It always brightens my day when I get XX Jet Killer XX on my team, and I kinda hope that it stays that way. Another change that Riot made today is a revamp of the accuracy system with some changes. To start, they have increased the jump landing inaccuracy from 0.2 to 0.225 seconds, and its effect was increased from 5.0 to 7.0. These numbers mean that you will be inaccurate for slightly longer after hitting the ground, and you will be more inaccurate as you do so. This seems to be to prevent people from jumping around corners or off ledges and getting those nutty one-taps. Apparently, Riot thinks that it was a big enough of an issue to fix, and honestly, I kind of have to agree with them. It seemed like people were getting a lot of kills immediately after landing a little bit too consistently, so I do like this change. I think that these changes are going to help make the game feel a little bit more fair, and hopefully that means I won't have a RAZE jumping in my face and one-tapping me anymore. With all of that said, let's get into the part of the video that I know you have been waiting for. It's the tier list. Starting this tier list off, we have a familiar face from the last few patches, none other than CYPHER himself. Now, if you've been playing Valorant over the last few patches, then you probably know by now that CYPHER has been king. With his ability to shut down pushes and constantly be gathering information, he can quite easily take over a site or a round. With his only counters being SOVA and RAZE, two agents that we're going to be talking about in just a bit, CYPHER seems to be sitting comfortably at the top of our tier list, and until some changes come to him, it's probably going to stay that way. Blasting his way into the middle of our S tier, we meet none other than Breach. With his buffs showing the world what he can really do, we have seen Breach really rise in power. His 3 flashes definitely make a difference, and his ability to counter operators with fault line has not gone unnoticed. Breach is currently the best agent at removing someone from a place that you really didn't want them to be. Added with his insanely good team play in a meta designed around a well-coordinated push, and you have a pretty good agent on your hands. If you have a rap problem, it's time to call the Exterminator, and with Rolling Thunder, Breach can send them scrambling. Moving on to the next agent in our S tier, it seems a familiar presence blocks our way. Teleporting into weird angles and somehow flanking my JETT, we meet none other than OMEN. Even with his recent nerf this patch to his paranoia, with RIOT reworking the hitbox to be easier for enemies and teammates to dodge alike, we don't think that this is going to make too much of a difference in the grand scheme of things. Paranoia was always pretty strong, but it was never defining OMEN's power. With the other controller agents not being able to keep up with OMEN, we have seen his playstyle and utility evolve the fastest. Especially with his room clearing paranoia and constant info gathering with Shadow Step or from the shadows, we don't see OMEN moving from his seat anytime soon. Hopefully with the release of Act 3, we will see another controller come to rival OMEN. If you feel a draft, it's probably just JETT propelling her way into the middle of our S tier. Ever since JETT got a bit of love a few patches ago, we've been seeing her slowly rise from the worst agent in the game to one of its best. However, with some of the recent nerfs coming to JETT, we see her fall 2 spots on the tier list. JETT's Bladestorm has had some damage fall off added beyond 12 meters, with the damage dropping as low as 35 damage. The consecutive burst fire reset time has been increased from 0.33 seconds to 0.45 seconds. This means that it takes slightly longer to use your right click with JETT's ultimate than before if you just used your right click and scored a kill to reset your knives. Lastly, the right-click headshot modifier was reduced from 3 times to 2 times. This means that at the closest range, JETT will only deal 100 damage with a headshot. This means that she'll require at least 2 knives to connect with an enemy to kill them. While these are definitely some interesting changes coming to JETT, just like with OMEN, her ultimate doesn't really define her power. With 3 smokes each lasting 7 seconds and still a bunch of mobility options in her kit, we are excited to see where JETT goes from here. But for now, she is still sitting comfortably at the end of our S tier. Out of the frying pan and into the fire, we have Phoenix dropping in at the top of our A tier. Phoenix has some of the best aggressive abilities in the game, with 2 quick flashes and some great area of denial tools. Because of those, we have seen Phoenix be a threat for a while now. As we see the operator fall in power, this just allows Phoenix to play even more aggressively, as the operator is one of Phoenix's main counters. With nerfs coming to JETT as well, this opens up a potential opportunity for Phoenix to take over the meta and dominate for a little bit. With pro players using him pretty consistently and pug stars tapping you in your rank games, we like the spot that Phoenix is in. With changes coming to other agents and weapons this patch, Phoenix has secured his spot as the top of our A tier. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's just an overused joke to introduce SOVA, the next agent in our A tier. With a record-breaking amount of shock arrows messing up my day in solo queue, I think it's safe to say that SOVA has started to return to his good form. Seeing him performing consistently over the past few weeks has given rise to some more SOVA players, and in turn, some more SOVA innovation. It would be nice to see a little bit more love coming SOVA's way, not necessarily with buffs, but some general quality of life improvements, which SOVA could probably make him to be a bit more interesting and fun to play. With Owl Drone still being a very reliable info gathering tool, and Hunter's Fury still making me sweat and playing an impromptu game of dodgeball, we are happy to see SOVA sitting comfortably in the A tier. Rounding off the A tier, we have none other than the explosive expert herself, RAZE. With RAZE falling a bit in power due to a lot of nerfs spread out over many patches, her killing and mobility might have suffered a bit, but she is still the go-to option if there is something in your way. Being able to deal with all of CYPHER's and KILLJOY's ability is not something to overlook, especially in a meta dominated by Sentinels and Duelists. If you really want to stick it to that annoying CYPHER, pick up RAZE and get ready to have a blast. Starting our B tier, we have none other than KILLJOY, an agent who enjoyed some time in the spotlight, unfortunately falling from her old heights. You know, it's not so much that KILLJOY is a bad agent, as it is that she's simply being suffocated under other, better options. She already has to compete with CYPHER since they both share the Sentinel class, but this meta of duelist agents also hasn't helped her as much as you might think. Proper positioning of your abilities is key with KILLJOY to make sure they don't get picked off by an aggressive Phoenix, and that is simply a discipline not many players are willing to practice. If you want a fun Sentinel to pick up and play, look no further, but for now, she'll have to sit back and relax in our B tier. Whew! It has been a rough couple of weeks for our next agent. Next up in our B tier, we have none other than Sage. With some pretty big nerfs hitting Sage not only last patch, but for a few patches now, it is nice to see her get a break and be able to stabilize for a bit. After dominating the meta for so long, we barely get to see her in any games. Now that's not to say that she's bad. She's still able to heal her teammates back to full health and even bring a teammate back from the dead, so it's basically impossible for her to be considered a useless agent. Instead, it seems that people are just not used to seeing Sage as she was most likely intended to be. A healer with some crowd control and an area of denial ability, not a whirlwind of kill boxes and destruction. If you are looking to pick up Sage in the current meta, don't be discouraged. Just know that she's not quite as powerful as she used to be. As we start to near the end of our tier list today, we meet a good old friend, Brimstone. Brimstone has been in a tough spot recently, with the domination of OMEN along with the site executes generally being done with less smokes. Brimstone just isn't as useful in a team as an OMEN or JETT. While he did receive a small buff this patch, with his stim beacon ability now granting 15% rate fire bonus instead of the previous 10, we just don't see this being a strong enough change to really change Brimstone's placement. Sure, his orbital strike brings great denial and his molly is undoubtedly a great tool, but he just doesn't rise to the level of flexibility or freedom that some other agents have. Right now, he could definitely benefit with a buff to his ultimate or molly, and I hope that we see some love being thrown Brimstone's way soon. But until then, he's going to have to remain at the middle of our B tier. As we come to a close on our B tier, we meet none other than REYNA. As we've mentioned since REYNA's release, she's just been too inconsistent for us to rank her high on the tier list. Adding to the fact is that RIOT also decided to give REYNA a small nerf this patch, reducing the fire rate bonus from 25% to 15%, meaning that you are going to shoot a bit slower now with her ultimate active. If you want an agent to go into unrated and stomp on some people, well then look no further, but in a competitive environment, she just falls short. With very limited utility, only 2 short-lasting flashes, she relies on getting kills to power up. Where other agents can still help their team and use their abilities even when playing bad, REYNA requires you to get kills in order to use most of your abilities. It is for that reason that we will likely see REYNA stagnating near the bottom of the tier list until she gets some more love. To be honest though, REYNA is probably one of the most difficult agents to balance without making her overpowered, so I don't envy RIOT tackling this task. As we enter our final tier, we also meet our final agent. Rounding off this tier, this list, and this video, we have what is unfortunately a familiar face in Viper. Viper did manage to get some love this patch, so now Viper players are going to start with 100 fuel at the beginning of the buy phase instead of the previous 50. Snakebite will also have its vulnerable effect last for up to 2 seconds, even after leaving Snakebite's area of effect. Her ultimate also got buffed to allow Viper to move faster while her ultimate is activating, and she can equip her weapon faster after her ultimate's activation. Viper has seemed to just slither on elsewhere as she's simply not being picked up or used almost at all. While she definitely contains one of the most interesting kits in the game, it is simply too punishing to use. If you misplace her toxic screen at the beginning of the round or get a bad read as to where your enemies are going, you're basically out of luck. If you place your poison cloud somewhere to block line of sight but need to rotate, then you're out of luck. These changes are awesome to see, and I hope that they do help Viper's pick and win rate a little bit. But at the end of the day, these all feel like band-aid solutions to an agent with some very real problems. I have no doubt that RIOT is currently looking into what is wrong with her in her current state. But until then, we have to place Viper at the very bottom of our tier list. Well guys, that is all we have for you today. If you did enjoy this video, then be sure to leave a like, and if you're feeling extra spicy, maybe even consider subscribing. We put out new educational guides every single day, and the best way to make sure that you don't miss out is to ring that notification bell. And hey, if you're looking to really up your game, then be sure to check out ProGuides.com for the best on-demand coaching experience. Remember to stay safe out there, and I will see all of you in the next one.